So I'm curious what you guys think. I want to hear some comments in the chat. Chris Olave, should we be discussing him as being one of the greatest receivers in Ohio State history? Is it too early to say that? Or are we seeing the greatest receiver in the Buckeyes history right now? Do we think we can beat Georgia or Alabama if we play them today, or is it a close loss? I still think that Ohio State cannot beat Georgia or Alabama. I want to see how Georgia plays against Auburn. Alabama's playing A&M. Alabama will beat A&M. I don't think I think that's still a little too early to say. I want to see the Buckeyes compete against Penn State. I want to see how they play against Michigan. I want to see how they play against Michigan State. Michigan State's still undefeated. They beat Rutgers today. You can see on the bottom of your screen the other Big Ten scores. Michigan State beats Rutgers. I think they had a receiver with over 200 yards. Wisconsin's about to play Illinois. Of course, we got the big Penn State-Iowa game. That's a huge one coming up. And then Michigan in Lincoln against Nebraska tonight. Olave did have better QBs, Ryan Day's offense. Yeah, but I'm looking at the number standpoint. Fox reporter said OSU has the nation's best offense. Maybe talent-wise. I think talent-wise, you could potentially say the Buckeyes have the best offense in the country. For sure, based off of the fact that, look, for those first couple of weeks, Travion Henderson was kind of the guy running the show. He was getting most of the yards. He was getting a lot of the scores. But I think these last 2 weeks, you're seeing different guys get into the fray. Olave, Wilson, Smith and Jigba. You're seeing Henderson. You're seeing Teague. These guys are all scoring points. And Williams and Mayan Williams isn't even playing. Oh, my God, bombed down the field by Texas. There's like a 60-yard throw by Texas. They're now in the red zone with 6.5 to go. A touchdown ties the game, an extra point. But that's the thing. I think from a production standpoint, Chris Olave has to be in the conversation for being one of the best Ohio State wide receivers ever. He has the resume, and sure, he has great quarterbacks throwing to him, but it doesn't make it any more or less of an achievement if he had a bad quarterback throw. If he had a bad quarterback throwing to him and he's still getting these yards, I think he's still in the conversation. And with the good ones, I think he is too. Chris Olave is a great talent. He looks phenomenal for the Buckeyes. He's running perfect routes. He's catching a lot of passes. He's getting a lot of yards, and he's getting touchdowns. He's helping separate Ohio State from a lot of the teams in the Big Ten. Williams has been injured, so that's why he hasn't been playing. I'm sure happy Xavier Worthy didn't stick with Michigan. Yeah. Physically, he might be game impact. I could put 2 ahead of Chris O. Yeah, I think we need to see a little bit more of what Olave can do in a big game situation. Because obviously he's never won a national championship. You think of some of the great OSU receivers, Michael Thomas, Santonio Holmes, David Boston, some other guys that probably don't come to mind to me right now. They performed in the big game situation. I want to see Olave put up these types of numbers when they play Penn State right before Halloween, when they play Michigan State, when they play Michigan. And even if Olave is getting doubled or not having a good game, they still have Smith and Jigba and Garrett Wilson to throw to. Garrett Wilson is one of the most underrated receivers in the country. I don't even know if he's underrated. I think he's just there. He's one of the best receivers in the country too. Ohio State has the best 1-2 punch in the receiving core that is in the country, in my opinion, right now. They just look great. 3rd and 11 here for Texas. This is a big play for the Longhorns. They need to get a first down here. I still think he is the second best back on the team. Who, Williams or Henderson? I think Travion's the best back on the team. Feeling better about CJ. Kids turn out to be. Yeah, that's the thing. He had a couple of missed opportunities there. Looked a little bit shaky against Oregon and Minnesota and Tulsa. I thought he looked fine against Minnesota in the second half. Against Tulsa and Oregon, he wasn't that phenomenal, but he's putting up numbers. He looks really good. They're developing chemistry with him. The offense is developing a lot more chemistry. They look a lot more comfortable with each other. And man, oh man, they look great. 4th and 11 here for Texas. They're going for it. They should. There's less than 5 minutes to go. Williams, I think, yeah, Williams is probably the second best back on the team. I'd go Henderson, Williams, Teague. We're just not seeing enough of Master Teague because Henderson and Williams, I think, are just better than him. Chris Carter, the GOAT receiver. I agree, David. I think that's a good call. I think you could definitely say Chris Carter is the greatest receiver at OSU. But that puts up another question. When you guys are talking about best receivers in college history for a college program, do you also take into account how their NFL career went? Because if you're taking into account, as a whole, as a football player, the greatest receiver to play at OSU, and you look at, you count what they did at Ohio State, what they did at the NFL level, then yeah, Chris Carter might be the answer. But if you're just looking at it from what they did at the college level, what they've done for the Buckeyes, maybe the answer changes. Maybe you change it to David Boston. Maybe you change it to Michael Thomas, Antonio Holmes, Chris Olave. So it's interesting to see just kind of how people, how their thought process goes for this type of question. Personally, I think you can separate it into two. The most talented, best resume for a wide receiver, I think, ever in Ohio State history belongs to Chris Carter. Hall of Fame NFL career, great college football player, definitely. If Chris Olave turns out to be a great wide receiver in the NFL and puts up these numbers, 4th and 11, incomplete for Texas, Oklahoma in the driver's seat. And we'll talk about the rankings here in a second. However, if someone was to say Chris O is the greatest wide receiver, I wouldn't argue. Yeah, that's the thing. It's a tough debate. It's a very tough debate.